We came to the show not necessarily knowing what to expect, but we support a lot of retail customers and the distribution centers. So we thought there might be a bit of a crossover to the retail ops. And I think we're pleasantly surprised by how many distribution center supply chain folks are actually in attendance here. So they're learning a little bit more, I think, about how retail ops is doing business and what type of innovation and automation they're looking at. So the benefit of that to us is we're making new contacts with people that we've never talked to before. We're having conversations about parts of the business that we usually don't get into too much with some of our typical contacts and the people that we work with today. So it's been great from that perspective.
Tell me about the solution specifically for retail supply chain and distribution centers that Vecna's products help solve for retailers.
Yeah, certainly. So some of the problems that we solve on the distribution center side for retailers is just making sure that the product is constantly moving. Arguably the biggest bottleneck that people are seeing is just getting product into the store, getting the right size apparel into the store, keeping the shelves stocked, particularly during kind of uncertain times and peaks in the volume. And we've noticed that the biggest bottleneck is coming from the distribution centers. So through our robots, we're able to predictably, reliably move product. Distribution centers traditionally, and especially right now, are having a lot of trouble sourcing the right human resources to make sure that product keeps moving, and robots solve that problem at the distribution center level. And they're trying to solve very similar problems actually in the retail stores as well. So a lot of people are coming up to us today wondering how our robots can actually be deployed in the stores. And there's not always an obvious use case necessarily at the store level, but we're talking more about automation and learning about maybe some other types of robots that we could potentially work on that could be deployed actually at the ground level in brick and mortar.
Automation in supply chain and distribution for retail is a huge buzzword right now. What differentiates your automation solutions and your products from what might be similar that competitors offer right now?
Sure. So what differentiates Vecna from other AMR style robots out there, robots that move product, is really how it navigates. So we use a SLAM-based navigation methodology, so no fixed infrastructure. We rely on robot technology and sensors to read the environment, interpret the environment, and move around freely. So we can observe obstacles, move around obstacles 100% dynamically. So we never stop, and that's really the name of the game. We also offer remote support. So where other robots are kind of like fixed closed systems, our system connects out to the cloud. It can be supported by human beings that we provide on the back end. So if the robot does run into a bottleneck within a store, within a distribution center, it'll call back to a human being, and they will leave either like a digital breadcrumb trail behind it and help that robot out in real time. So really our customers never have to interface with them. In very few cases will that come up.
For retailers who are looking to explore options like the ones that Vecna provides, tell me about some of your success stories with current retail partners. And you don't have to name any by name, but tell me about some of your success stories with current retail partners.
Sure. Yeah. So primarily in the distribution center space for a lot of these customers, we work with several Fortune 500 and some Fortune 100 retailers. All the places that folks are shopping today, a lot of those products that they're buying in the store are being moved by our robots at some point in time throughout their network. Really the workflows, we try to focus on applications and specific workflows. So primarily where we're helping these customers out is with inbound receiving. So product comes off a truck, either floor loaded or on a pallet. That's where our robot picks it up once it's actually off the truck and on the dock, and then we move it to the end of aisle end cap where it gets put away by a manual driver high up in the racking bays. On the opposite side of that workflow, when they're replenishing for the stores or doing case pick type operations, they're pulling stuff down off the rack, handing it off to our robots where we are bringing it over to a case pick area or bringing it out to a shipping lane where it's loaded back on a truck and brought out to a store.
For the chief operating officer at a retailer who says, yes, automation sounds wonderful, but I'm so worried about disrupting my current operations, tell me a little bit more about the partnership solutions that Vecna provides to alleviate some of those pain points.
Yeah, sure. Well, one, in terms of alleviating the fear of change and disrupting the process that they've obviously engineered and put a lot of thought into today, we do try to seamlessly integrate with the current process. So even though every type of new technology does require some type of change management, we do try to mimic one for one and apples to apples as much of what they're doing today with our robots as possible. So in terms of how we actually do the deployment, there is a lot of human and robot training. Our solutions are 100% meant to be worked on with people, not necessarily to replace people by any means. We're supposed to be supplementing the mundane, repetitive tasks, driving pallets to and from point A to point B. In terms of supporting the customers on an ongoing basis, there is constant retraining being done at the site level. Again, we offer remote support and remote training for customers as well. So the idea is that even if there are hiccups in the solution or in the activity of the technology, Vecna is going to handle that as a solution provider as opposed to laying the burden back on the distribution center team and the on-site staff to deal with it. We take care of all that.
Perfect. Any closing thoughts or summaries that you want to give on Vecna's efforts at NRF or in the retail space?
Yeah, I mean, to close and just kind of recap, I think what we've seen at the show here at NRF. Again, we were kind of coming here for the first time, wondering would we meet the right, decision makers here. These are the people that we're going to talk to about our solutions, and I think we have seen a little bit of that. So it's kind of proven that thesis for us a bit. More interesting to see that there are some robotics companies here, but not as many as I would have thought. Based on the trends that we've seen, more on the supply chain side, I would have thought that we'd be kind of like overrun with robotics here. But there's not really as many as you might think, kind of going into it. It is interesting to talk to some folks that I think are on the right track and ahead of the curve, thinking about how they're actually going to automate different aspects of the brick and mortar stores. So I've talked to a lot of retailers that are, folks that are in the retail ops side of the business that are wondering how they can turn their retail setting into sort of a customer fulfillment center, having robots pick orders out of the back office, put them in bags or in boxes, having a locked box door for customers to just come into the store, pick up their stuff right away. Faster than 1 or 2 day delivery. It's right there. It's being picked for you at the store. Not necessarily taking away from the in-store experience where people get to shop and look at new things and try things on, but just to supplement that for people that know what they want. They just need it today. I'm seeing a little bit of that, but again, I think those people are a little bit ahead of the curve, and I'm just wondering really what next year is going to bring in terms of robotic presence here at NRF.
So this show is a really interesting show for us, and it's not our typical show. Most of the technology here is really focused on growing the top line, right? Growing market share, business intelligence, reaching new customers, selling. Our technology is really focused on the back end, moving the product to market, moving product to retail, moving product to distribution centers and fulfillment centers. So all of the growth that's coming from all of these software and hardware companies in NRF is really enabled by technologies like Vecna and all of the people in the warehouse and manufacturing side. And I think the automation that we bring to this is really the thing that can set the rest of these companies up for the growth that they need.
Automation is a huge trend in retail supply chain and distribution centers. Tell me why it's so important for retailers to get on board with that automation before it's too late.
At this stage, I mean, the pandemic alone has transformed supply chains globally. But even without the pandemic, the growth of the e-commerce sector, the growth of the retail sector, requires huge increases in back-end supply chain movement, back-end material movement. And there's no way that growth can happen with human labor. There's just not enough humans in the world to move the material that's necessary to handle that increase in demand. If you've spent any time in these distribution centers, many of them are 20, 30, 40% understaffed. Distribution centers and warehousing operations cannot hire labor at any price. When you see these facilities and see the scale at which they're operating in, automation is just absolutely inevitable.
What differentiates Vecna's technology, solutions, products from other automation solutions that may be available in the retail market?
We have a few key differentiators. The first is that our autonomy stack was developed entirely in-house. So our vehicles navigate off of fixed infrastructure in your facilities, walls, columns, racking. and they navigate and think and see like a human driver does. So if there's an obstacle in the path, the vehicles will autonomously plot a new route around the obstacle. If there's human operators driving forklifts or other material handling equipment, our vehicles can see that, identify it, and plan new paths. The second piece is our software layer that can manage a whole fleet of vehicles. We can view the warehouse as a system and ultimately are going to be able to coordinate human operation and robotic operation for maximum site efficiency. The third piece, and probably the most important piece, is the Pivotal Command Center. This is a call center in Boston staffed by Vecna employees that gives oversight of all robots in the field. So if there's an issue, if there's some problem at a site that our autonomy can't figure out, a human operator in Boston gets an alert and can teleoperate into the robot and either give it some breadcrumbs or actually navigate the robot out of the issue. From the customer's perspective, this is completely seamless. The customers can experience 4 nines of uptime at their site. This is a huge barrier to adoption for a lot of customers, is having the confidence that the robots are always going to be operating, and having our humans in the loop is a way to ensure that that's going to happen at the customer site.
Scott, any final thoughts, takeaways, or comments about what Vecna has learned or the conversations that you've had at NRF?
This show has really taught me that at every piece of the retail supply chain, from the manufacturer site through distribution, through fulfillment to the retail store, there are huge gaps caused by lack of human labor. And when I see these problems, I view autonomy as the only solution to maintaining the growth in this sector. So hopefully Vecna technology can enable large portions of this, particularly on the back-end distribution center and fulfillment center side, to keep the material moving and keep these retailers growing.
One last question. Without naming any names, tell me about some of the success stories of Vecna products being implemented in the retail environment and for retailers who may be on the fence about this sort of automation.
Yeah, so great question. In terms of our successes, we've touched a number of tier 1 retailers in just about every segment. Home goods, automotive, building materials, clothing, shoes, and all of these customers have the same problem, right? Moving material from their manufacturing sites and their distribution centers to the front lines where they can be either processed through fulfillment or sent to a retail location and stacked to the store shelves. And so our technology is flexible enough to handle basically any pallet-sized move. And every one of these operations is running on full pallets. So this tech will help all of those retailers continue to streamline their operations. And when we look to the future, we can see opportunities for automation to get involved with more complex parts of the workflow: replenishment, case picking, each picking, all things that are kind of handicapped by a lack of human labor, and that we're going to be able to really extend the efficiency at these retail sites.